It is of course a ZvZ here. King Sejong Station is going to be the second map in this series, and spawning to the top left hand position, we have got the pink Zerg player, representing Vega Squadron, JonnyREcco. And his opponent, to the lower right, the green Zerg. It is Genie. And this is apparently a Smurf account for him, and his name is actually Elroy. It is Elroy on the bracket. So I didn't have a chance to check which name he wanted to be called by, so I'm going to stick with Genie, just so I'm not ridiculously confused trying to remember everything, because being a caster, we are quite simple as a breed. We can just say what we see. That's basically our skill set. But anyway, game number 1, pretty intense. And while REcco got a ridiculously good first fight using 30 odd banelings, he wasn't able to win the game. And while that was ongoing, there was a massive speedling counterattack by Genie, and that just crushed all of REcco's economy and just couldn't fight back from that. So, gonna be waiting to see what we get in map number 2. Whether we'll be getting hatches first, looks like we will from REcco, and also from Genie here. And now we need to be keeping just a good close peek on what they do after this, because hatch first should mean that they're going relatively macro orientated in theory, but theory and practice aren't always the same thing, and ZvZ is a pretty similar a pretty good matchup for things not to go the way they should in theory. So the Overlord's bumping heads at the moment on both sides outside each other's naturals, and yeah, if we take a look, they're about to discover that their counterpart has gone for a hatch first. Well, keeping things steady. By the way, some people are asking in chat now, is this game really delayed because the bracket says REcco advances? No. The bracket was actually delayed in advancing. This is REcco versus Elroy on the bracket, not REcco versus Ghost. JonnyREcco beat Ghost 2-0. So as it stands at the moment, these two both playing very standard builds, going gasless again for the time being. And this is what they did in game number 1. So potentially going to be going for a very similar build to the last map. Genie still looking for any kind of way that he can just get that macro edge, because game number 1 it was actually REcco who got the early economic lead. And it wasn't a huge thing, it was just a couple of drones, about 10 drones for the majority of the game, but Genie, he came back from that amazingly. REcco sending out his first 2 lings now, whereas Genie hasn't actually made any. And because of this, he'll get 1 drone advantage if everything else is equal, which is tiny, but hey, it's an important thing to think about. In mirror matchups, especially early on, a single worker lead can actually make a notable difference to how the rest of the game goes. So REcco now moving forward. We've got the double queens waiting to make sure that Genie is unable, or is not going to get his main scouted, just blocking off that ramp. Meanwhile, Genie doesn't really have much in the way of information. He knows that his opponent didn't have any gas when he last moved in, but that would have been very early, so should assume gasless. They're both now adding in 2 additional gases. And was that actually 1 cancelled? Whoa, okay. Only the 1 gas from Genie now. Genie was supply box, so he was using an extract trick there to catch it up. But still, only the 1 gas. Genie got that 1 gas down though a lot earlier. REcco adding in his 2 gas now. Speed begins for Genie. He's adding in some more Zerglings. Now I draw your attention to where the rally is for these Zerglings. Into his main. He doesn't want these scouted. This is an aggressive play coming down for Genie, where he wants to catch JonnyREcco off guard with it. And because REcco's open gasless, he's not going to have access to banelings. And that means defending speedlings can be a bit more challenging. Full wall off coming through here at the natural base. It can be done with a double evolution chamber and a Rotron plus a queen. But it's the rocks at the back that are getting taken out. Again, Genie wants to avoid the Overlord at the front of his base and avoid having these speedlings seen. And there's a lot on the way. This is letting REcco get a massive drone lead. He's attempting to take a 3rd base, but that's not going to last long. REcco with the double evolution chamber, adding in some more lings of his own, but he is nowhere near as high as what Genie's currently got. Genie really, really pumping out those lings. He's got a Rotron as well, so if Rico came up at the front, he'd see things looking relatively normal. This Rotron isn't required for use yet. It's just there to make things seem as if it's all standard. This Overlord is going to be the first one that's likely to see any sign of things going a bit odd. But he's not going to see it for quite a long time. How many? Okay, there's a decent number of lava for Rico, so he can make 16 more lings when he sees this. Sees them coming through. And this should be instantly a wall off and a cancel at the third. Oh no, the third just kicked in. He must know it's coming now. He can see it. He can see the lings coming through, but he's not going to get there in time. The speedlings get in. This is disastrous for JonnyREcco. Brilliant for Genie, though. And he's just going to be able to do so much damage here. The Queen's trying to defend. 20 more lings on their way. But so many drones are going to go down. However, even though a lot of drones are dying, Rico is still a hatch-up, and he does still have a worker lead, despite losing 19 already. Gonna have to try and work all this through. Loses a couple of queens, and just leaves the game. He can't do anything against that. A speedling all in, unscouted, is going to be so bad to try and defend with only a gasless expand. So congratulations to Genie there, pulling out the tactical cheese. Advances 2-0 over JonnyREcco, and keeps his hopes of a WCS position alive.